Hi guys, welcome back to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host, as always, Steve Hall, and today we have a very exciting roundtable kind of just discussion between three individuals, or rather a coach and their client, and I'll be a bit more descriptive. That is Alberto Nunez from 3DMJ and his client Dirk, who came and won the WNBF World Amateur title and went pro as a WNBF competitor the previous season, 2021, and did fantastic. And there was a little bit of controversy surrounding his prep as well in terms of their approach, but it was very successful. So we're going to kind of dig into that, see what lessons they learned, what went well, what maybe didn't, what maybe they're changing in future, and also dig into Dirk's offseason and what they're going to do there. So guys, enjoy this one. As ever, we do have our own contest prep, ultimate guide to contest prep ebook. So if you want to learn more about the depths of contest prep, a lot of the things we talked about within this podcast are covered in our ebook in depth. So definitely have a look and check that one out in our shop. You can pick it up as an ebook or a hard copy if you head over to JPS and their website. So guys, without further ado, let's get into the show. Hi guys, welcome to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host, as always, Steve Hall, and today I have Alberto Nunez, who hopefully 99% of our audience know. Alberto Nunez is obviously a pro natural bodybuilder from 3DMJ, 3D Muscle Journey, and within their team, and is a great coach as well. And one of his clients is also on the show, and that is Dirk. And Dirk has become a bit notorious within the natural bodybuilding scene. So you might not know who he is if you're not within our scene, but he did incredibly well this latest season with Alberto in his corner as well. And we're going to kind of dig into that season a little bit. So to give kind of a brief introduction, Dirk had a fantastic season in 2021. He was the amateur world champion at the WNBF. I managed to hang out with him for a little bit in terms of actually hanging out with him, not on stage. Unfortunately, I wasn't in the kind of overall final, not quite. And he won his WNBF pro card as well. And now he's in his off season, and he came in gnarly shredded, crazy condition, and that definitely made him just kind of untouchable, along with tons of muscle there. So Dirk is a fantastic bodybuilder, and one of the kind of controversies that happened during the season was a photo of Dirk, or basically anytime Dirk probably shared a photo, there's probably people looking at it being like, what the hell, man, this just doesn't seem right. It didn't matter how close you were to stage, the photos were always kind of just out there and amazing. One of these photos was shared by I think it was the Team 3DMJ page. We even had a discussion between Alberto and Andrew Chappelle earlier that year, kind of before the season had finished. And I guess part of that discussion was surrounding kind of burnout, like deteriorating, getting worse, being ready too soon. And I'd love for maybe Alberto to initially start up with, because I think you kind of were saying that it's not necessarily every athlete that can get into Dirk's position. So it's kind of unique to him. So I think it's great to have you both on. But before we talk about kind of what happened exactly and the lessons and takeaways, maybe walk through kind of your stages for Dirk, for him, like setting him up and how you got to that point and why maybe as well, if that's all right.
Yeah. So I guess it all goes back to sports specificity, right? So say for a powerlifter, it's like, hey, if your 10 rep max bench press went up, it's like, that's good, but like, we're trying to get good at this. So they tend to trail not too far away from that, right? When it comes to like this one major thing that you have to bring to that bodybuilding stage, especially when it comes to natural bodybuilding, because, from a muscularity standpoint, we can't hang with those IFBB pros, right? So what do we have left? We have, symmetry, which, okay, that's kind of depends on your taste of physique, which ones are more symmetrical and flowy. But conditioning, that's the one thing that we have that I'd say almost every single year you look at the most conditioned athletes on this planet, it comes from our sport, So we want to be close to that when we're entering this specific phase, this contest prep phase. So I have always targeted to have an athlete start their prep in the best possible position for them, and this is, yes, genetics is going to be a big part there. Also, their own, experience as well. Like I have a bunch of athletes this year who I've set up, and their setups look a little bit different. Like to the point where it's like, man, I want to start this all over again. But I'm like, no, because like when I was posting Dirk, some of my athletes were like, oh, hold up, you set me up, but you didn't set me up this good, Yeah. And it's like, well, I mean, there's context and there's certain reasons as to why we're starting off this way, but definitely, with said person, our goal is to make it a little better, like every single time. So with Dirk, he's always had a pretty low body fat set point. Like when he was doing his parkour, I think he had like almost glute tie-ins, and he was jumping off buildings and such. So you got to feel okay to do that, right? To do some parkour. So we had that along with we had trialed enough fat loss phases to the point where we actually did some pretty assertive mini cuts. Like I think to the point where at some point he brought up more of a rapid fat loss type of approach to me. And I'm like, all right, well, let's figure this out. Let's see if it breaks you or not, for example, right? Like no time like the off season to figure out if you're wrong on something. And he kept passing the grade with those. Like he just kept, it's like, all right, I'm done. Like 3-4 weeks of dieting, I believe, like we're good. Let's start gaining again. So all these factors ended up having Dirk start in a position where honestly, for some people, if that was your first go at the like contest prep shape, like that would be more than acceptable, I think, so that was the first major conflict, was just like, okay, where we started, and then where we started relative to some of the shows that we were targeting. And I think both him and I now can say that, okay, next time we'll probably start that march a little bit closer to the last show, but with a lot of the things also going on in 2021 in regards to like what's going to be open in the Northern Hemispheres once winter comes around, right? It was one of those things where it's like, okay, well, we'll do this because that way we can put ourselves in a better position to for sure be 100% at those first shows. And then if I have to leave him hanging a little bit, I really trust that Dirk can hold it together mentally and from a physiological standpoint as well. So I think the lesson there was just more so, how that goes, man. It's like one of your athletes can post something, they tag you in it, and then all these people have all these many different opinions on the matter, but they don't understand exactly what's going on behind closed doors. And often it might not look like the most, I guess, balance of solutions, right? The most logical, common one. But when you take the time to understand what's actually going on, you find out that, oh wow, like, okay, that's a good idea, So it ended up being a good idea, but I think me and Dirk were both completely okay with being wrong, because you're going to be wrong a few times at this, and this sport will humble anyone at some point.
Yeah, I think context is key, as they say, and there was just a severe lack of context. And so I guess it's fine that it brought a lot of discussion, and I think it was fruitful in the end. I mean, totally fruitful in the end. And it's been great to be able to be part of that with the podcast and having you guys delve into it. And actually, just to touch on for you, Dirk, so where do you feel your best, like body fat off season wise? Have you always like touch on some of those points in terms of like having slight lines in your glutes and you're doing parkour and everything? What's your like history look like? Have you ever been like particularly overweight, or have you always been on the leaner side, just so the audience have some context?
Yeah, so I'm always kind of was more so the leaner guy, like the skinny man, always like in school when I was doing parkour. I think my body weight was around 50 kg or so when I was doing parkour. So super light. And also like in school and stuff, I was always the kid who was never eating a lot. I was like, food, it doesn't matter so much to me. Like I was never like that guy who was like, oh, like looking forward to eat and stuff. I was always like not the small eater, but it was never had a high priority for me. So, and with parkour, when I was doing that, like, was always very lean. Like I was always, like that. And then when I started with bodybuilding, it was the first time where I actually like kind of like focused on food and increasing body weight. And this was like it's still to this day, it's hard for me like to gain weight at a certain point. Like I really early on, I need to force feed myself to get calories in it, and to gain weight, that's always the hardest part for me. Like when people ask me like nutrition wise, what's harder for you, like the prep or the off season, I will always say like off season is harder for me nutrition wise. Like during prep, it's just the side effects of that low body fat, but nutrition wise, it's never a big struggle for me. So yeah, that's the kind of thing. And I think context is very important. And there are some people like who have like, yeah, lower body fat set point, and it has the benefit, but also, like I said, in the off season, it can be a little bit annoying.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it sounds, I think people listening are like, that there's probably more people listening who are like, that sounds like the opposite to me. Like was always liking my food, thinking about food, and not on the leaner side. And so when you do have like, you're kind of like set up from like a genetic standpoint, maybe to be a good and successful dieter. So that's really, really cool. And that just makes the process easier, I would presume. Was there any points with like when you were working, actually, I guess as a kind of the athlete, was there any times where you felt, I guess, how did Alberto earn your trust? Did he need to earn your trust, or did you trust him the entire way? Were there any moments where you were like, oh, I'm not sure? Was this social media? Did social media have an impact there? Because that's something like in the old days, like no one would have to deal with any of that pressure. And now it's like a new modern age bodybuilder, like you have to deal with the pros and the cons, I guess, that social media brings.
Yeah, like I always trusted him. like even after this post, I trusted him still 100%. Like we did our thing all the way, and we also talked like that. Yeah, we don't get distracted by the opinions from social media and stuff, and just doing our thing. And because we saw results, I still felt great. Like when that picture was posted, I think 9 weeks out, where a lot of people flipped out. Honestly, I've still felt all right, and Berto knew that from the check-ins. So the hardest part was like, that last, I think, 4 pounds or so, where it got really, really rough. And then Berto also knew it when, things got really rough, actually. So it was the last little bit. I still remember. So, yeah.
And Steve, I needed to give him that pressure, man. Like I'm like, you know what? I think from now until when you're done with bodybuilding, you're going to have eyes on you. So guess what? This is maybe, we didn't plan for this, but this is just going to be part of your competitive bodybuilding 101. Because I mean, when I weigh out his talent, here gives people an idea. Like, give me Sean Clarita at his peak when he was in the WNBF, and Dirk, like probably this next version. I think Dirk gets him 9 out of 10 times. So like that's the shirt he's wearing today. Like that gives you an idea. I can see it. Like this is the giant killer for the 2020s. So that's how good he is. And guess what? When you are given that platform, it's just always going to be that way, and you're going to have to learn to drown out the noise.
Yeah, I think whenever you are very successful in something, you're always going to have your doubters or haters, or the people want to, I don't know, question you, understand you as well as an individual, because you have to be special and a bit unique. Like we're kind of discovering with Dirk, not many people have the ability to have got to that level of condition with that muscularity, and you're kind of being able to be something special and show it off. Actually, on that note, just as a random side topic, Dirk, do you have any intentions to go the Sean Clarita route and delve into the IFBB, or are you natural? You're the Natty Boys, right? You have to stay natural. That's your podcast.
yeah, definitely. Like the main thing with the sport, I had my first season, and I still feel there's so much more potential naturally, like within the next 10 to 15 years. And this, pumps me also so much up to stay natural, because I know there's so much more potential. Like I said, the first season, and there's so much more to come. So this keeps me up a lot. Yeah, definitely.
Crazy. I should have mentioned it was your first season as well. I just think to most people's first seasons and do not go that way. But having said that, it makes it sound a bit kind of, you'd already had like mini seasons without competing, like you said with Alberto. Like you'd already kind of tested the water, you'd already got quite lean, you kind of knew what you were looking for. So it wasn't like a, I don't know, someone else out there can't be like, oh yeah, my first season I'm just going to do a Dirk. They're kind of framing this like as if that's achievable, but it's not that way for everyone. So yeah, actually, Alberto, there's something I'm interested in, is that kind of, once you're in that zone of kind of almost your competition lean, not maybe completely like all the way there yet, how pliable is someone in that state? Because you kind of mentioned maybe there's a mentality there, like psychological, maybe it's more psychological than physiological, because a lot of people worry about that kind of burnout. Once you're that lean, kind of, can you sustain that? Do you really have any more fat loss and kind of room to gauge, or are you going to lose muscle training, that sort of thing? How have you found that go for people?
Okay. So when we kick off the prep, or once we're deep into a prep?
So like deeper into it, like where Dirk was when he's weeks out from the show.
Okay. Yeah. Man, you have to assess everything. Like, I think it starts off with, are we still responding in a quite predictable manner? Is one. And, I like to also compare like what we do to, what say happens in boxing matches with the corners. It's like your boxer is back after a round, and it's like, hey, you in there? Like, are we good? Are we good? And sometimes you might say, this is it. This is we're gonna have to throw in the towel, and this is good for now. Sometimes it's like, hey, we need just a little cruisy round here. Just don't get hit for this time period, and then we'll reconfigure and go aggressive again. But yeah, I think first it's the body accepting of it, which, it can be a number of reasons as to maybe why what why the plan is not giving you the specific output that you desire in, say, a week, 2 weeks. There's many reasons to why that might happen, but I think probably the psychological side outweighs that just a little bit, because sometimes there has been times where someone's body is quite responsive. It's like, we're getting everything we want every week, but if you take them there, if you take them beyond this point, it's like, hey, I might make it so they don't come back for another prep, or the trauma might be big enough that it might be a year before they feel normal again. So there's a lot of responsibility. And I think in order to make that part go, there needs to be a good communication line between both the coach and the athlete. And the athlete should be comfortable enough to say that, hey, like, I'm good for now, or not necessarily. They usually never say that. They don't want to say like, hey, don't put me back in there. But they'll drop hints, that this might be as far as we should push right now. And with Dirk, we had a few hard moments. We definitely did. But I think when I looked at his history, I'm like, this is the first time you've been like tapped in the mouth by a fat loss phase. I think you'll figure this out, and we did kind of go a little bit easier during certain rounds, and then pushed again and kind of went back and forth. So it wasn't as linear as it might have appeared. Like, there was a time where we actually pulled back a little bit too much, because I felt like, okay, he needed a little breather before we really did what we had to do. And that's exactly what we did. And, he came back refreshed for the second half, and he took care of business. But if he wouldn't have been ready for that, like, it's like, hey, again, like, we've already done quite a bit. We can leave it here. We have to drown out whatever people might have said, like, we're going to hear a lot of like, I told you so's, but we were okay with that, because, again, like, this isn't his last prep. Ideally, it's like, we'll get to, in the long term, I think we'll be correct in our assumptions, but yeah, there's a lot of bobbing and weaving and a lot of just open dialogue along the way to make sure that he was safe and good to continue.
Hey, Pascal here. I just wanted to take the moment to talk about our membership site. Inside, you'll find a thriving forum, an extensive exercise library, courses, presentations, and research reviews. All I need you to do is hit the link in the description below and sign up. See you there.
I really like that analogy, and I like that you kind of described the non-linearity like it's non-linear in that you can go like push and pull. And I think a lot of people just think like you're in prep, it's just straight down. And we've had roundtables with yourself in there in terms of like refeeds and diet breaks and things. And they come into question whether or not they're physiological, psychological, all these kind of things. But obviously you found them to be incredibly beneficial. And I think, like we mentioned there, if they are psychological, even like for the benefit, for the most part, like it's a huge psychological battle at that point.
Yeah.
So that's something I learned that season after having it get extended for me to be in that period of time where I was at a kind of a really good level of condition. And I was like, actually, you can kind of have a bit of a play here if you're willing to, if you can take your foot off the gas a little bit and then push again, and you can kind of do that. Because some people, you take the gas off the foot, your foot off the gas, sorry, and you end up kind of just driving off and you're completely lost. Dirk, out of interest, do you remember what the lowest your food got to, and how much kind of, if you had to do any cardio or steps and that sort of thing, where did that go?
Yeah, like cardio, not at all. We kept steps at like 10 to 12K, the whole prep. And the lowest the food got was like when we ate up too assertively, then we got down, I think, to 1900 calories for like, I don't know, like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. But before, the lowest we've got was like, I think 2,700 or so when we got really lean already, because after that too assertive eat up, we didn't have that much time left. So we actually, needed to go a little bit more aggressively for that last dig for Worlds. So yeah, it was around 1,900, but in all honesty, it didn't make a huge difference feeling wise for me, like 1,900 calories or 2,700. I've still felt all the same diet effects. So it was totally the same for me. Kind of.
Just less chewing.
And when I brought him out, it was one of those where it's like, okay, this might be it. Like, this might be the end of the road. Like, this might be as lean as we get. Let's start to bring things up. And this is something that works sometimes. Like sometimes, like what really sparked him was maybe being on that stage at like 96%, 97%. And I'm like, all right, let's experience that. Like, sometimes you just need that first competition and then you're like, okay, I'm rejuvenated. Like, let's go. And that's exactly what happened with him. It's like, once he's like, okay, I'm good, but I can be better. And whatever I was experiencing with that first dig, I'm more than ready to do that one more time. So sometimes it works out that way. And I think for him, like, just seeing how good he could be, made the suck that was going to come after, like right before Worlds, not as big of a deal.
Yeah.
That hard, Dirk, like pulling back and then pushing again. How was that mentally for you? Was it kind of, you were the athlete and you were following orders, or did you feel like, did you struggle with it at all?
Like, I was totally, like, in this moment, totally the athlete. I was super motivated. Like, after, I think the WNBF was it, where like, where I clearly saw, like, I looked better before that shows. And I was like, man, I looked better before. So I want to bring that to the stage, actually, that look. And we, like, even, got a better look on Worlds compared to that dig before. So we got even leaner than before that dig. So this was actually quite cool to see. It was still really hard, but somehow not as hard as the first time. Like, and we got even leaner than that. So yeah, it was that last dig and it really kept me going. But yeah, it was still hard mentally for sure, but we made it. Yeah.
And something that I think is really clear with you guys, and that you've mentioned a few times there, Berto, is the importance of communication. Because like, if you're blind to how your athlete is feeling, you don't know if you should be pushing them harder or pulling back or what have you. And so the audience know, how does your guys' check-in process kind of, how did that look like? How are you communicating leading into the shows?
So we would do, there's the, objective data. So the spreadsheets, like, what are the numbers doing? There was the physique, which I like video, because video works a little bit better than pictures, because sometimes, you know how it goes with pictures. It's like, hey, it could have been snapped at the wrong moment and something didn't pop this week. So video is better, because sometimes even the transitions, like if someone's setting, like moving from one pose to the next, you're like, oh, that's a new line that was not there. So that's super important. That sort of data. But then there's like the Dear Diary section where it's just like, all right, plop the camera in front of you. I think initially it's a little weird for people, but then it's like, you know, that deep into a prep, you're actually going to like really enjoy this period to stop and think about how the week went. And that's where, you know, you look for little things. You look for little things like in regards to, you know, of course, like what they're trying to convey to you, but also a big one for me is like how they're speaking, you know, like the rate of speech and things like that. I do have to put you at 1.5 speed or 2 speed, right? Like, so we're monitoring all those things, you know, like shoot, I've even monitored like people's like rooms. It's like, if it's getting really dirty back there, like chances are they're really like struggling and just slothing about. So yeah, you try to pick up on as many things that are specific to the individual. And I think that's why working with people for extended periods of time, like you just get to know them better. And sometimes without them actually saying it, you can pick up on what might be going on, especially again, if you're an experienced competitor yourself. It's like, okay, you know, I think I know what's happening here. And you can, through that, give the athlete your best estimations in regards to what you should do next.
Yeah, I think with the online coaching, I don't know how many online coaches use these kind of the video diary sort of check-ins, which I know I took from you guys when I got into the industry, and like I just held on to them because I find them incredibly valuable, and I don't feel like I could do my job as well as I do without them. But I think a lot of coaches just look at their numbers on the spreadsheet and they just you're not losing, take more food away or what have you. And that can be dangerous. For you, Dirk, how was the check-in process for you? Did you enjoy kind of having that moment of just sitting in front of the camera and like, did it de-stress you in that moment? I'm kind of putting words in your mouth, but how did you like the check-in process?
I honestly loved it. Like I was always looking forward, like every Monday and did a check-in. I was always looking forward for like when Berto sent me like, what to do next, the next steps. Was always cool moment. And also like the posing, obviously I like practice it nearly every morning, and this was like total routine. I was even filming it up like even without a check-in to just see myself if there can be anything done better and stuff. And also cool for myself to have like a kind of like a little diary more or less. So was super amazing, definitely.
What was the hardest thing for you throughout the entire prep, Dirk? Like what like a diet fatigue symptom, or what aspect did you find most challenging?
Most challenging part? I think one of the most challenging parts was when I got really worried about when we ate up to assertive. I saw like the shape was getting worse and worse, and this was mentally extremely hard for me. I was like I looked so much better before that, and like then no, I need to fix it. And this was actually a really hard time, like for a day or so. I was like really, man, this sucks. Like, and I was every day looking like, let's fix it, fix it and stuff. So this was really hard mentally. And diet fatigue wise, I would just say the low energy at some point. Like everything felt hard. Like I would say this was definitely the hardest part. Like training was also no more fun. So at some point, I think you know it, like training becomes like, okay, let's do it. And no more dopamine and stuff from training. That's for sure.
Did you manage, how did your performance go? Did it plummet with those last 4 pounds at all, or did you manage to hold on to a lot of your performance?
Honestly, I would say it didn't drop at all. Like the whole prep at the beginning, we made progress and it didn't drop at all. Like no strength drops, or like even reps stayed the same. So this was actually also really amazing.
And we used less volume than previous blocks that we had put together. You know, I think that was
exactly
that on my end. That's something that, you know, like one thing about prep is it does let you, whatever things you might be doing wrong when it comes to the systems you're applying to your situation, you're more transparent. So let's just say if your day-to-day life is not working out in regards to stress, maybe it's not the most conducive environment to bodybuilding. Like you'll figure that out on the way, like as you're prepping. You know, it's your stress just gets a little bit smaller. So with training, like that's one way to kind of decipher like how much junk volume do I have in here, right? Because your body kind of tells you, like I remember my first few preps, there was just, I'm like, man, I could probably cut it here and I think we'd be good, but I don't want to because that's not what I did during the off season. So like for me, it's always trying to create as little contrast between like off season, on season is within the confines of what's realistic. But training is one of those things where the way, there's that U-shaped that people talk about when it comes to the relationship between volume and the amount of adaptations you get. And I feel that the peak is kind of similar. It's just that when you're prepping, it's instead of a U-shaped, it's kind of a V. So really quickly, it just starts to do that. So like this prep, we decided, hey, you know what? Like, let's play around with this. I think it's going to be more conducive to the long term. And he was able to keep up with it. And we're kind of playing off that trend right now as we get into our off season. But yeah, I think had we not had that little intervention there and just gone for it, and he hadn't been trusting of that, I don't think he'd be able to say the same thing about performance, because we were using, I think, our first few blocks together, like in regards to volume, like it was quite overdosed in hindsight.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So you say, is the volume that you're now in your off season with like similar to your comp prep levels of volume in terms of, I guess, like hard sets?
I would say totally the same right now.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of really similar approach. So let's see how it is. Like when it worked that good during prep, it can just work as good with enough food. So to set a good stimulus. So very excited to see how that will play out.
Yeah, really cool. And actually talking about off season, how's I guess hopefully people are familiar with the recovery diet. I did a whole episode with Jeff on that, so people should understand that. And I know that's something that you guys used in this situation. How did you find it, Dirk? How are you feeling now? It's now, I don't know, actually, it feels like ages since we finished. So it's month to month. So are you feeling good? How long did it take for you to feel good, and kind of how much weight did that mean you had to gain?
Yes, I would say like 6 to 8 weeks where I felt totally normal again. Like most symptoms went away after like 2 weeks or so, I would say. But we gained weight really assertively. Like I think within 1 week, I've gained like 5 kg the first week. And then afterwards, a little bit slower. And we went up to like 73, like 8 kg above stage weight within like, 6 to 8 weeks, I would say. So this was that fine line, like 8 kg above stage weight, where I said, okay, I feel normal again. Everything is fine. And yeah, like really assertively, the first 2 weeks, I think we had like first week, like, I don't know in Vegas how much we ate.
Yeah.
Probably,
it was easy to eat a lot.
Yeah, probably 10K on the first 1 or 2 days.
And I love that, Steve, because a few years ago, the reverse diet was a thing. And like that was always stressing. It's like, it's like you want your guys to just relax and get back to life. But at the same time, you're kind of as a coach, like, hey, hold your horses. But this time it was nice because like, him and Wayne were like painting the town red, like just eating everything. And I'm like, go get it, boys. Like this is the most efficient way to normal. And it was just nice to not have to tell them anything. And just like, you guys are doing the right thing in the long run.
And was that amount of weight gain and that assertive approach with Dirk, is that a similar approach you take with other individuals, or was it kind of like prep was Dirk's a bit of a unique individual in terms of how he could get to prep? Was his reverse similar, or kind of a bit more unique to him, or recovery rather than reverse?
Yeah. Man, again, it's like you got to see what the person's history was. Like, if, Dirk came with, previous like binge eating disorders, it'd be one of those things where it's like, okay, like, because that's what, honestly, like what they were doing, like from a medical standpoint, I think it probably would look that way. But we understand it's very transient. It's like, it's like, just give them a month. they'll be wishing they were having oatmeal for breakfast again. So it depends on the person's history. Their obviously their body fat set points. Also psychological matters. Like you kind of want to blend both, where it's like, okay, what's the best thing for the person, but then also what is the best thing for for them from a mental standpoint. And yeah, it's a few moving parts, but generally it's like similar trends. Like the first 2 weeks, we want to be pretty assertive with it, but that's going to look very different from person to person. But with him, it was very hands off and just go do your thing. I think in 3 to 4 weeks, you'll be dying to have, fresh fruit in your diet again.
I guess for some people, like Dirk was the extreme level of, he got that lean, so he needed that amount of recovery. And also Dirk can handle a lot of food. So the damage, I don't know, the damage control, but for those reasons was limited. So you could be really hands off, but I don't know. There could be someone who dieted for a similar length of time, but didn't get anywhere near as lean. And they are on low food, maybe comparatively. And like, they're not going to be able to have that kind of fun looking recovery process afterwards.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like you said, it's like damage. You want to think about the damage you're doing, but at the same time, it's also like filling out like the potholes too, right? So it's like it's a little bit of both in a way, right? And I think with him, he had gotten to the point where he's like, okay, I like this bodybuilding thing. It's like I want to do this right, and I want to put myself in the best position possible to just work on getting better as quickly as possible. So even though it took many pancakes and it looked like all fun, it was actually like the right thing to do, because come 2023, it's not going to matter what you look like, month or 2 months post show. What's going to matter is like how much of that off season did you use wisely?
Is always my point of, for that period of time, you just need to get back to the thing that builds muscle is gym performance and improving that. So if you are holding your body fat levels and recovering or reversing slowly and not seeing good gym performance, you're just extending that time. So like Dirk, I imagine you're already seeing good numbers in the gym. Actually, if you already hit some like PBs or PRs, or are you close?
Definitely.
Yeah. So
yeah, definitely. Like I think after like 4 to 5 weeks or so, I started making progress again, or like 3 to 4 weeks, really quick. I felt like, yeah, man, making progress again, putting on new tissue. And that's the main goal after prep, I would say. And that's why we done it so assertively, to be in that place again, like hormonally and stuff, to, make new gains again. That's the goal. So, and to feel normal, obviously, again. So, yeah, and it worked greatly, definitely.
And are you prioritizing anything? Because obviously, I think it's 2023 is the next time you're looking to compete. I think you have to, through the WNBF, compete in 2023 to keep your pro card. Potentially, I don't know if they extended it, allow you to extend it. I think there might be some circumstances they allow that. But 2023 in mind, what is the goal for you to be better than you were 2021? What are you going to do differently? Or rather, what are you going to bring up this offseason?
Yeah, the main goal, obviously, is to be bigger. Like way bigger. I want to be like, next year to bring like something totally different, like a good, that you can see, say like, oh, that's a huge difference. Like definitely more muscular. That's the main goal. Like the wheel back side, I want to focus like on the wheel back, on arms to, improve these a lot. Like, but basically everything, that's the goal. And off season wise, focusing just on that, making progress, eating enough, and that's mainly it.
So I haven't mentioned it, but for the listeners, you were a bantam weight, right? What was your stage weight? Are you thinking you might push into lightweights, or I guess you'll land where you land? Maybe I don't want to speak for you.
Definitely. Like just seeing where I will land. I think my stage weight was 65.5. So lightweight would be like 68 kg. So that's still a bit, but who knows, like in the pro division, there's not always a bantam class. So I would maybe automatically jump into the lightweight class and go from there. And so let's see like what the stage weight will be next time. Like I don't have a number in my head. It's just like being as diced as possible and while being as full as possible. So I don't have any number in my head with that. But obviously it would be cool to
that
be
body weight,
heavier.
That body weight's going up higher than previous years.
During the off season.
Yeah. So that's some stones to turn there, I believe. And again, it's just like, I think the competition season like brought more specificity to a situation. It's like there was this abstract goal before of we're going to compete and we want to be competitive bodybuilders, and like now it happened. So I think in regards to motivation and direction, he's in a really, really good place right now.
Yeah, and actually, it's interesting to hear that you'll probably push to new body weight heights, because I guess with 2023 in mind, it's quickly actually coming, I guess, like in a crazy way. We're already into like coming into March now. We're 2 months in, like full months in. So have you already got that kind of somewhat mapped out and blueprinted for Dirk Alberto? Have you got like something you want in mind, like planning backwards from those?
No, and you know what? I think to touch on one thing before we go there, one thing that was trailing behind was just gym motivation for a minute. And this is something that I use with my athletes. It was post-contest, just giving them like a high reps rickety type block.
I saw that.
Yeah. You know, I think, it's going to give the connective tissue that, you know, really hasn't had a break in a while, some time to mend up and heal, but also makes you long for like more traditional training. So he was having fun with that. You know, he was getting some endorphins, like some runner's highs almost from the high rep stuff. But after a few weeks, it's like, all right, can we just do some traditional training again? So we popped that back in, and it's a pretty symmetrical, I think, system for now. But I think come next block, it's like, all right, we'll really get into the specifics a little bit more. I think in his case, he's quite symmetrical everywhere. Obviously, there's some areas that, you know, again, like anyone, that can be a little better, but generally speaking, his stuff is going to look pretty symmetrical. But I do look forward to like now that, again, like he's like, okay, I'm a competitive bodybuilder, you know, and I don't want to have the sophomore jinx. I think it's going to be easier to give him a block that might look a little bit more asymmetrical compared to previous blocks that we might have ran.
Very interesting. Yeah, I would say and people can go and look up Dirk, but like, and to go pro and to win the world title, I think if you were really asymmetrical, like you probably you wouldn't have had a chance. Just come out with massive arms, just like, yeah, that guy's got huge arms and shredded glutes, to be fair. So those took you a long way. Yeah, in terms of like pushing body weight up, is that obviously you said you're going to push to new heights, which might sound like, oh, you're pushing to new heights potentially. Is that new heights in body weight? Do you think that'll be at new body fat levels, like higher body fat levels, or are you kind of keeping an eye on body fat levels due to the next competitive season?
You know, with him, I don't worry too much about the body fat because I know it'll come off really, really quickly. And I know also, I think more than ever, and I keep saying this, but like he's more about like the business as opposed to just simply doing what he wants and like what's purely for fun and recreation. So like if this is what it takes, because, you know, I think sometimes, and I've kind of made an about face on this. I think in the past, I've probably given recommendations for gaining phases that are maybe a bit too long. And I think that's perfectly appropriate for, say, an early intermediate, right? It's like, hey, just, you know, try a whole year, you know, especially nowadays with Instagram, like most people come from a history of like yo-yo dieting. So, you know, with him, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, you know, time flies. Like I want to spend as much time as possible. And we are gaining in a non-ambiguous intake, an intake that, you know, is using every possible hour. And it sounds a little bit excessive, every possible hour in the day to feed recovery, you know. That's the purpose of this. So obviously the cost of doing business is going to be elevated body weight, and, you know, maybe there's some stones to unturned there, right? It's like maybe in the past we stayed a little bit too tight and we didn't let ourselves grow as much as possible. So let's create the best environment for that. So and with him we can take those risks again because, you know, body fat mobilization is not really an issue with him.
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we pride ourselves on providing personalized service that will take your physique and knowledge to the next level. If you're interested, check the description and sign up.
waiting for a Jabba the Hutt looking Dirk. Like everyone's got their fingers crossed, like, come on, there's got to be something wrong with this guy. He's just going to get Jabba the Hutt, isn't it? It'll probably be your appetite that caps you first on the sounds of things. And I don't know if you agree with this, Alberto. Again, coming back to training, I always think with pushing body weight up, so long as there's no reasons in terms of like timelines and things, but if their training performance is just going up and they're not getting to like, I don't know, unhealthy levels of body fat, I'm kind of like, why would you cut it like early if you're still performing and feeling good? So I definitely can see the merit to that. And I could see that being really beneficial for Dirk, especially because he's traditionally stayed on the tighter side. And I think that's something you've also learned potentially in your off seasons. I've certainly learned it, where maybe you stayed tighter because you can, but it doesn't mean necessarily you always should.
Yeah, 100%. And then, the jump off, the initial coming out of prep, I think for most people, like there's that low end of your set point that exists on the way down, but on the way up from, the contest prep trauma, it's not exactly the same most of the time. Like usually you have to skip a little bit above that. I know for myself, low 170s, like on the way down feels amazing. Like I'd argue I feel even healthier, but like I probably need an extra 5 pounds on top of that on the way out. So with him, it's like there was this old threshold and his body needed to go beyond that in order to just feel 100% again.
And then Dirk, is there, in terms of the season in 2023, your eyes stuck with the WNBF, or are you looking to do any other shows at all?
Definitely WNBF. Like that's the main thing. Like I hope there will be some more pro cups in the Europe. So I think the only one is in Switzerland right now. Would be super cool if there would be like a pro division in Germany, England, Spain, or somewhere. But the main show will be definitely Worlds in next year. Yeah, this will be the big one.
Out of interest, just outside of bodybuilding, in terms of like your off season, do you have like goals and ambitions that you now can achieve because you're well fed and stuff that you want to do before, next contest prep? Just because I know what it's like when you're competing. Like you can be very effective and efficient, but sometimes the stress just builds to a point. I don't know if you do, but I just was interested.
Like out of bodybuilding, you mean like life-wise and stuff?
Yeah, like I don't know. You are becoming. You're a personal trainer, right? So you're kind of going further down.
Like at my gym.
Things.
Yes. Yeah, that's like one of the things where I'm like now getting experience with different people and all that stuff. So yeah, one of the main things is like Alberto knows that I lived before in Thailand, and the plan is like probably next year after prep, I want to move back there and then do there like personal training, maybe also like online coaching and stuff like this. And
don't forget the podcast.
Right now and the podcast, obviously. The Netty Boys. Want to grow all that stuff. So yeah, we're doing the podcast right now with Wayne and Giraffe, Prine. That's what we are focusing right now as well. And yeah, saving money right now. So that's a big thing. And yeah, that's like life-wise where I'm focusing right now. And like I said, one of the main goals, like next year, probably after prep, moving back to Thailand and doing everything from there then. So yeah, that's a big one.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, from my end, I think people have a really good understanding of kind of who Dirk is, kind of how great your coaching relationship was, why it was so successful, kind of the not mistakes made, but kind of the challenges faced. And I think they were mostly due to like circumstances outside your guys' control, but you learned from those. And I can only, considering that was the first prep, I'm very excited for the next time round, and I can see how you could improve in such a short period of time as well. So I think we're all interested to see this kind of 2023 season. To get people interested also in Alberto, I realized I could have probably done a whole podcast with you, Alberto, on your prep this season, because you're following, I guess, a similar process to Dirk, and you, I believe, have just gone through the initial kind of fat loss phase, and I think you're stabilizing a little bit. If I've been following closely enough, I'm not sure if I have.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing. Setting myself up for that jump off, and yeah, man. Every time you prep, it's like you it's just a good reminder of what the athletes go through, in a way. Like already it's like, prep's going to start May, June, somewhere around there. And I'm already thinking to myself, like, man, like how am I going to, balance this part of life and prep and that, and, so it puts you in the hot seat. And so I think it makes you a better coach. So I look forward, obviously I have my own ambitions as an athlete, and I'm glad that I still have those, because the sport has grown, right? And it's like, okay, I'm still kind of in the mix. So that's a privilege in itself. But from a coach's perspective, it's one thing to have been through it, but you know how it goes. It's like you forget the trauma quite quickly, especially after you've done it a few times. So it's just it makes me for sure a better coach every time I do it. I discover little things that can be of use to my athletes that I can pass on. So I think you can definitely do this without competing yourself, for sure. If you're the right type of person, but it always helps to go in there and just get reacquainted with everything that an athlete goes through.
Absolutely agree. And I love how much you're coming from that, from like being a better coach perspective, because I know you're a fantastic competitor. And do you have particular like goals for the season? Do you have things in mind you want to achieve?
Yeah. I think, I'd like to. World is definitely the number one priority. I'd love to have a super stack lineup and just be up there in that top 5. And I think I've toyed around with the idea of doing NPC nationals, like the Masters, right? I'm barely going to miss the over 40. But they got the over 35. So I'm thinking about that. But, World, I think, especially when it's stacked, honestly, like I made the comparison with Sean and Dirk. I think when we go like section per section, there is more drug-free talent than there is enhanced, because a lot of those guys have no idea how good they are. It's like you look at their physique and it's like, so like, what do you do for a living, dude? And I'm a bus driver, man. And you're just like, because some of those guys are so good. It's just they've always had it that way. They've never even thought about like doing anabolics. They're just these weird creatures, man. So I'd like to just go up there and hang with those guys. I think that'd be, if I could get a top 5 at Worlds. I don't think I've ever gone a top 5 at a World show. I've always been just outside of that. But to do it at Worlds, I think that would be quite the feat for me.
And 2017, was that your last season that you?
Yeah, and I probably would have done 2020 had and then 2021 happened, and I let everyone know. I'm like, you do know that it's 2021, and we don't know just yet.
Yeah.
But I think things are pretty. Yeah. So it's been a while, but it's like riding a bike, right?
That's awesome. No, yeah, definitely. So thank you guys both for being on the show. I've really enjoyed this. Hopefully people have taken a lot away from it. Dirk, if people want to kind of follow your off season and then your eventual contest prep, and also the podcast that you're on, I think every week, where should they head?
Yeah, that's the Natty Boys podcast. Natty Boys podcast with Wayne Carmona and Brian Queen. We drop an episode, I think, every 1 to 2 weeks episode, like an easy talk about bodybuilding, our off season, kind of documenting it, or hot topics, all that. And I'm mainly active on Instagram, Dirk Emmerich, and then how do I say it in English? Underscore. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And there I post like mainly training stuff, and next year the prep I will try to document it more closely than that one, for sure. Yeah. Also, one thing I could have done a little bit better on. Yeah.
Now you're a modern day bodybuilder. We need to put ourselves out there a bit more. Or it's nice to, especially from my perspective, to have seen into your prep even more closely would have been really cool. So I think a lot of people enjoy that a lot, Dirk. So it's
I will definitely do that.
Yes, that's awesome. And then Alberto, where should people head for you?
Well, first of all, I love the fact that he has a podcast going. I think every time we see like young blood, like really popping up, and especially natural bodybuilding, I think it's a positive thing. And so it's been fun to watch them do their thing. It's just a different take on the sport we all love. Like for his birthday, they posted it was a Tinder profile page. I'm like, that is. There was a bra on the bed, by the way.
The hormones are back when we know you're back on Tinder swiping.
Yeah. So it's good to see that. It's good to see that because it's a lovely sport. It's a wonderful option, right? And just catch these young guys early. I think that's super important. So yeah, that's what we do. That's what I've been trying to do for a while now. And I'm going to try to document this prep a little bit more. So I'll try to do that on Instagrams, on YouTubes.
Awesome.
Just because I think aside from like promoting the sport and promoting yourself as an athlete coach, just gives you a lot of good memories to look back on, because realistically, we're not going to do this forever. So it's good to have that photo album. So yeah, I'm on Instagrams, Nunez 3DMJ, YouTube, Team 3DMJ. And yeah, we're going to try to do this, one more time and hopefully I can not just learn things for myself, but, be able to pass on what I learned to others efficiently.
Amazing. No, I mean, all I can say is you have done and you continue to do a fantastic job at that. So thank you very much. And thank you both for coming on. I'll make sure all of those are linked below in the description so people can have quick access to that. And we'll talk to you soon. Cheers, guys. Take care. So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge. And I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.